Hello and good evening. Tonight we have two people here who are two of the special people in Milford, willing to stand up and actually do something to help the town improve. As I've mentioned, there's too many people out there that complain but won't do anything to help. Tonight we're going to talk to two people who said they'd like to try and make it better. So why don't we start with an introduction?
I'm Tom O'Laughlin. I live here in Milford and with my family, and I served 17 years as the chief of police in this community, a community that I really came to love to the point that I sold my house in neighboring Holliston and moved here. I'm running for selectman because I believe that I can make a difference in people's lives. I think I can make a difference for the community as I did for 17 years. I've had experience in working with residents across the community, businesses, as well as the various department heads and committees and boards. Probably one of the most important is the Finance Committee. So my dealings with the Finance Committee, because you hold the purse strings, Al, you and your others. But I'm running because I do love this community and I do care for this community deeply. So the seat is a vacant seat, and I believe that I can make a difference on that board.
Hi, Al. Thank you for having us. My name is Josh Leoch. I'm running for the open seat on the Board of Selectmen. I am very excited for this opportunity to run. I feel that the community is at a crossroads, and I feel that there's some things that need to be focused on and worked on so that we can move Milford forward. I am lifelong Milford resident, fourth generation Milfordian. As we discussed, I'm a real Milfordian because I got that third generation and I live a mile from my parents, right? Exactly. So I feel very proud to be here. I want to continue to be able to call this home proudly. And in my business over the past several years, I've seen more and more people moving out of town, not wanting to be here, not choosing this town for whatever reasons they may have. And I feel that I can help change that perception of Milford. I'm currently an elected member of the Board of Assessors. I sit on the Downtown Revitalization Committee, which I'm very passionate about. And I've owned my own business for 17 years here in town. And very, very excited for this opportunity.
You won the toss, so first question. No surprise. Tom, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
I think you should vote for me because I have the skill set to serve on the Board of Selectmen. I've managed municipal agencies for over 30 years. I've managed the finances as well as the personnel. I've rebuilt and reinvigorated several police departments, to include the Milford Police Department. And when I took over, the department itself was fractured, to say the least, as well as their relationship with the community as a whole. And working together within the department and outside the department, we brought about change, where today the Milford Police Department is viewed as being the best, if not one of the best, police departments in this area. I bring an independent voice to the board. I promise to the voters that I'll always look at things objectively. I don't have every good idea. Good ideas are put on the table by many people, and it's working together that you're able to make that difference in the community. My dealings, as far as whether people want to live here in Milford or not, I wanted to live here in Milford. That's why I chose to live here. My experience in dealing with people outside the community as well as within the community, I just don't get that sense that people are reluctant to live in Milford. You can't keep a house on the market in this town for more than a week. So I think Milford offers a lot of very, very positive things, and they do so in an effective and efficient way as far as costs go. So I want to give back to this community. This community gave so much to me personally, as well as to my family. So this is an opportunity for me to give back.
Josh?
Yes.
I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
You should vote for Josh because you care about this town. You want to see this town move forward in a positive light. And unfortunately, I have been exposed to the side of things where you see people leaving. And not all people. but certainly seen my generation change direction and change focus. And I feel I'm a strong independent voice. I feel that I have a different set of skills outside of just having some municipal experience through town meeting, through the Board of Assessors, working with all the other departments such as just the finance team to ensure strong fiscal direction for our town. I bring an independent business voice. And when you run your own company for 17 years, I've run a real estate brokerage here in town as well as an investment firm, real estate investment firm for the last few years, and handled a joint venture with another national company, which I ran for 12 months during the transition time with over 100 agents, 2 multiple offices, multi-million-dollar budget. And I was able to focus on things differently than when you do municipally. I think when you have a small business, when you start on January 1, you have no idea where the money's coming from. You don't have that tax base, you don't have that tax pay, you don't have town meeting for that special additional thing you need. You have to start day one in hunting mode. And you look at money differently, you view people's money differently. You take it very seriously. And I've guided us through major shifts in the marketplace, national downturns that were bigger than the Great Depression. We were able to get through that and ensure that people who worked for me were able to work, live, feed their family, house their family, and clothe their family. So for me, I feel that that business acumen with the municipal experience brings just a different voice and a committed voice that wants to see this town succeed. When you have a business in town, the town, especially my business, which is focused on ensuring that the success of Milford happens, because it's my business to ensure that people sell real estate in this town. So I want to see it to be successful. I want to see property values go up. I want to see positive growth. So my focus is to ensure that I take care of that commercial and residential taxpayer and protect their property values.
Next question starts with Josh.
Yes.
What do you see as the 3 major challenges you would face as selectman?
So the number one overall for me is that vision of ensuring that we protect the tax base. Protect the taxpayers' investment in their homes and their commercial properties, the businesses here in town. And I think we have to do that in a couple different ways. I think one of the biggest ones is certainly the downtown revitalization. When that committee was formed a few years ago, it's something I'd been preaching for a long time, something I've been studying just in other towns and other areas, and I was excited to be a part of that out of the gate. I felt that the downtown needed some revitalization, and a new focus. A lot of the discussions I had over the past 5 or 6 years were people whose perception was based on that 2-mile drive through the center of town. And we have some great businesses here in town, but it just didn't look and feel as the way other towns and communities have looked and changed over the last few years: Hudson, Marlborough, Franklin. So for me, the downtown revite is a very big thing that we need to focus on, with the focus of infrastructure, the focus of parking, the focus of parking enforcement, to ensure that we are attracting investors and businesses to continue to stay, as well as to come in and experience what Milford has to offer. On top of that, when you have those investments that start to be made in downtown, with whether it's revitalization of buildings, through facade programs, but mainly about rebuilds and expansions, you attract investors on those finger streets, and you attract people to attack the housing and look at renovating housing and revitalizing some of that housing stock that's over 150 years old. And so that's one of the big issues I think we need to focus on. The other one for me is certainly the discussion of attacking the overcrowding issue. I think that's a big issue that we need to look at. I think holding landlords accountable to ensure that they're not putting people in unsafe, unhealthy, unsanitary living conditions, to ensure that we remove some of the taxation on the school system, police, fire, traffic, the hospital, to ensure that we're allowing people to live in healthy, safe environments and not allowing these landlords to take advantage of whatever their situation may be. I think that's a huge issue for us. It's one that's not talked about enough, and I think it needs a lot of focus.
Tom, 3 biggest challenges you think you'd face?
I think that right off the first day, I'm prepared to serve on the Board of Selectmen. I have the experience in problem solving in this community, as well as other communities during my experience. As far as management of funds, I managed $6 million of the taxpayers' money. So I had 30,000 people looking over my shoulder to make sure that I did things right, and I did. As far as downtown revitalization, I disagree with some of the moves that have been made. And for instance, if we take a look, I mean, the town became the latest realtor of We Buy Ugly Houses. We went and bought 3 buildings that had to come down. One of them was very dangerous, the one right across from Central Tavern. It had to come down. Every other municipality would take that building down and put a lien on that property. That's not what we did. We went and bought those properties and then took them down. So I don't know what made those 3 properties special as opposed to what we're doing now over on Depot Street with a building that's falling down. And the town is going to do just what every other community does. They take it down and put a lien on the property. So I think some of the approach and the use of taxpayers' money, I don't think it was spent wisely. We said we were going to put parking there across from Central Tavern. There's not a single space that's been put there since that building was taken down. So when we talk about downtown revitalization, we seem to come at it, with bites. It's very small bites. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. There is no plan. And I think that there should be a plan. If you look at the model, Hudson, Marlboro, they had a plan. They knew exactly where they were going. I don't know that the town of Milford knows where they're going with that particular issue. A big issue you hear across the community is the issue around Amazon and the vehicles and traffic and all of the other things that flow from that. Again, how the town, it wasn't foreseeable that we're going to put this distribution center in and we're not going to have hundreds and hundreds of vans. I think the town missed the opportunity to really step into that issue and to deal with those concerns early on. The town, it appears, has only come into that issue when it reached a boiling point across neighborhoods throughout the community. So I just think it's a little more difficult to put yourself in a position of negotiation when you come at it that late in the game.
Okay, next question starts with Tom. Probably one of the more polarizing questions in this town is the dual tax rate, where we charge 50% more to people who have businesses versus homeowners, or around 50%. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it should stay as it is. To remove the dual tax rate would increase residential taxes by almost 20%. That's a heavy hit, particularly for people that are on fixed income, senior citizens and others. As a homeowner, you can't go and recoup that money. As a business, you can build that into your business plan and recover the money that you've invested to the community in taxes. So I'm in favor of the dual tax rate. I think it should stay as it is. Because I think any disruption is going to be passed right to the residential taxpayer, and it's going to be a heavy hit.
Well, you'd have no choice. You're either charging, right now, commercial is subsidizing residential. And if your numbers are even close to reality at 20%, it's what, $1,100, $1,200 more?
I think the number is like 18.6%. And the reduction for the businesses would be in the range of about 32, 33%. I just don't think that, if we talk that people don't want to live here, raise their rates again by 20%.
And that'd be $100 a month.
And I think you're going to see a real uproar. So one thing I'm hearing across the community as well is, people received their latest tax bill. I know what mine went up. Mine went up 9%. That's a big hit, So I think if you added on to that another 18% even, I don't think that people can handle it.
Well, I think you've hit it too. We're here because of what our seniors built as the town of Milford. And a lot of them, unfortunately, are living on $1,300, $1,500 a month, Social Security. You take another 100 out of them, and that becomes significant.
That's their food.
Right.
That's the gasoline for the vehicle.
Or the meds.
Right. I just don't think that the residential tax base could withstand that.
Now, Josh, you've got two ends of this sword.
Yeah.
Because you own your own business and you're a
Commercial
homeowner.
property. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think of the dual tax rate?
I think it's something that we have to certainly leave, continue to handle the shift as we've done so. I think the shift has been important. I think it's one of the biggest marketing tools we have in regards to why we have some strong things that we can talk about for Milford when I'm having those conversations, which I have often with people in regards to where they want to live. One thing I can point at is the strength, the fiscal strength of our town. And the fact that we haven't had to face a 2.5 override, that we keep the levy capacity in place that we have, the stabilization fund, free cash. We're very fiscally strong. So I feel that that's very important for us. And even though everyone's taxes went up because of property growth, property value growth, obviously just across the board nationally, we've had such positive trends that imagine if we didn't have that shift and how people would feel. And yes, certainly the residential or the commercial taxpayer would feel better when their taxes were down, but it's something that I knew when I purchased the building. It's something that I knew when I wanted to open my company, and it was something I knew that I was going to face. But as a homeowner in town, you thank your lucky stars for it because it allows you to have a much lower tax compared to picking up my home and putting it in any of the neighboring towns. So it's something that is very beneficial and should not be touched.
Okay, since we're pushing the finance side, raising to the levy limit. Your opinion?
You know, I never want to have to see us do that.
Would you explain what the levy is?
Sure, it's the amount of the amount of taxation you can have on a town given the value of the town and given what you're allowed to tax up to. And it's certainly overseen by the Department of Revenue, and we have room because we don't tax all the way to the ceiling that we're allowed to. So we have what's called levy capacity. We have space between that ceiling and where we go to what we need through all the appropriations that town meeting places every year. So we have not taxed up to that ceiling for quite some time. I certainly can't remember the last time you hit the ceiling or suggested through Finance Committee that we had to go to the ceiling. I'm not sure when the last one is. I really don't know. But for me, it's one of those places that we have that if we had to do that, it would be for some significant reasons, whether it was through large building construction, some catastrophic event that affected a facility, and we needed to invest or spend quite a bit of money, and there was no other way, whether we didn't want to do a debt exclusion or we didn't want to take out a loan or whatever the case may be, that we had to tax up to that levy limit. And then again, then you have that 2.5 override process, which we could go through, which some towns do so quite regularly and do so proudly. And some of it is for good growth, some of it is for investing back into the town, but if people have issues with their tax bill today, taxing up to the levy ceiling and then going into a 2.5 override would greatly impact our taxes. So it would be something that I would have to be so sure of in regards to why the need was there before we ever wanted to go there.
Tom, taxing to the levy limit?
I'm opposed to that for the reasons that I've worked through a downturn. If you go back to 2004, and I had to eliminate positions in the police department, and it wasn't just the police department, it was every department across the town. That's kind of, in a way, an emergency escape hatch, so that if you run into that worst case scenario, you do have that ability without doing an override. I lived in a community that did overrides and did them fairly frequently, and it caused a lot of angst. There was a lot of bitterness by people that were either for it or against it. It really drives, I think, a lot of the sentiment in a community as far as, are you acting as a community? People feel betrayed, has been my experience. So very much like the stabilization fund, you plan for the future, and this town does a very good job planning for that downturn or planning for that unforeseen emergency. And this town is in managing those types of events. My experience, having dealt with it several times, is I think the Finance Committee gets it, as well as the Board of Selectmen. When I answered to the board during those years in which we had those issues, they understood the impacts, and that, for instance, the police department, it's the largest budget on the town side of government, and it's the one with the most moving parts. And it's intensified personnel cost.
I was going to say, you only had 5 or 6% that wasn't personnel, right?
Right. So when it comes to cutting, that's where you're going to end up cutting personnel. And then you look at other smaller departments where if you cut out one person, you just cut the department in half, and that's not going to function as well. So the department heads I found in this community work cooperatively with one another. I think all of them understand that we're in this together, and we can resolve those issues together. And that's what occurred in the past. So I think we have to have those places, the emergency escape hatch. We're in trouble. We have to go there for funding.
Okay, I'm a brand new person to the area, and I come up to you and ask you a question. Are you getting good value for your tax dollar in Milford?
Absolutely. You only have to look at even our neighbors and the services you receive in this community, from police services, paramedic services, the fire services, schools. Not many communities pick up leaves. We have trash pickup. And frankly, in other communities, you have to go purchase bags at a local grocery store to put your trash out. Others charge a fee. I know when I lived in Holliston, we paid a fee. We paid a fee.
$3 for that little tiny bag.
We paid you would pay a fee as far as the school bus. So there were a number of different fees that essentially, you can call it a fee, but it's still coming out of the same wallet. So it's a tax. Milford, without a question, if you look at our taxes and you look at what we receive for them, I don't think there's a community in this area that can touch us.
Now, Josh, to you, it's not an academic question. You must face this every day with people looking where should they buy a home.
It's one of those marketing points that we focus on with the town. As Tom said, there are towns around that fee you to death. And they say, well, geez, our taxes are only here, but then you add in those fees and you're right up above most of everywhere else. So it is one of the places where you have so many services, full day kindergarten, all these things that come with it, the leave pickup, the trash. Those are, if you go to any area of town, you're not getting everything. And some of it, you're not getting a lot of those things. And you're going to be, like Tom said, feed to death. So it is one of the very strong parts of why we talk about Milford, why it's a great community, on top of all the other things that are great about this town and the history of this town and the diverse culture of this town. That tax, that low tax, and what you get for it is pretty amazing. Now,
Josh, we dealt with the security issue in this town by putting up $600,000 to have our own little SWAT team. Your opinion on should we have spent that money or not?
Should we have spent the money on the
SWAT team?
I don't think it's a SWAT team.
Yeah.
I certainly look at it as a special ops type unit. I love what they're doing now. I love that they're very involved in the schools. I love that they're visible in the schools. And I believe they're much bigger than just a resource officer as well. They're able to certainly move quickly and respond to other aspects throughout the town. While I don't know the absolute inner workings that Tom may know, I do feel that if a leader of a department comes and says that this is needed and this is a program that we should fund, I'm certainly going to listen to that. And if town meeting gets behind that and supports it, because we believe that town meeting does a great job. We've talked about how great town meeting is in regards to making good decisions for our community. So knowing that town meeting backed this and knowing that it's gone through some changes and it's gone through some adjustments, I do like the visibility of the schools. I think it's fantastic. My son sees a lot of people that he knows. He sees Sergeant Souza, and he gets to talk with them. And so there's an interaction with the police that helps children feel more secure around police officers, even in some of the gear that they have. So I'm always going to support police, always going to support first responders. And if it makes our town safer, better, and helps our community feel that we're doing the things we need to do to protect our citizens, then by all means, we need to do that.
Tom, I call it a SWAT team, but
it's actually not. It's actually filling the gap between SWAT and the patrol officer who goes out every day and performs general police services. Are they trained to handle situations of that seriousness? Yes, they are. But, we train every police officer as far as active shooter. We've trained them now for 15 years. We utilize a different school each time. In fact, we use businesses now, whether it be Waters or Benjamin Moore. So those facilities have invited us to stand up a SWAT team if you needed them is going to take about an hour. Most incidents of that nature occur literally within minutes. And if that intervention is there, you're going to save lives. So having those officers who have advanced equipment as far as equipment to protect them as well as equipment to address situations, I think it's wise. You're really talking about 4 officers that were hired with those funds. But keep in mind, those are the same 4 positions that were cut back in '04. So, and 2 of the positions cut back in '04 were lieutenant rank. So your actual cost, if you look at it, is less. Yes, there was a cost for equipment and a cost for vehicles, but those aren't every year costs, over time. So having those officers and having them available to respond, each of those police officers have a vehicle that they take home with them, so they can respond right from their home. I think it's invaluable to build in that gap that, God forbid, you ever had that bad situation. Frankly, we would be looking at ourselves saying, why didn't we do something?
I hope it's money we waste, that
Absolutely.
we never, ever get called on
Correct.
to recoup 1 penny of that money.
Listen, I went to work every day hoping there wasn't going to be a single call for service, So that's the way it functions. But that team of officers, I think, as Josh touched on, it's not just being prepared for the worst case scenario, it's being prepared for the good things too. So as he mentioned, you're not going to find a better person than Carlos Souza and his interaction with kids. I'm pleased that they're there. I believe they are making a difference as far as building relationships with the young people in this community from high school on down. So I think they do a good job.
Okay, Tom, you get the next one. Town meeting. What would be your style? How would you approach dealing with town meeting?
It's my same as that I always have. If I have an opinion, I'll express the opinion. But I'll listen to other people's opinions as well. I think that's how you reach the right answer. I think our town meeting functions well. People have the opportunity to get up and speak their piece. They have the opportunity to try to persuade others to see their view. As much as I've gone to town meeting where I'm sitting this, I already marked up my, my little brochure there to say, okay, I'm going to vote this way, and then you sit there and you listen to others, and they're talking about particular, articles, and I've been swayed. I think that, there were times when some people that, would come up to the podium, they knew more about what's underlying that particular article than I did. So I think there's not a more democratic process anywhere in the world than local town meeting. And there's no question about that. So I think town meeting, I think people are respectful of other people's views. Every once in a while you get grumbling about something because the hour is getting late or people just, are getting antsy. But I believe in it. I think that the residents of the community control the community. It's their community. They should have to say. So as a member of the Board of Selectmen, my approach is just that. You put a good idea on the table, and I'm all for it, as long as it's going to benefit this community.
Josh, how would you deal with town meeting?
Same thing, being on town meeting, being a town meeting member for over 10 years, I've seen a lot of things happen. I've seen a lot of positive. I've seen a lot of growth, a lot of good decisions, a lot of good discussions. Very similar. I've been on certain sides of things and then heard people speak and get deeper into the issue and have appreciated the approach and certainly have swayed my vote. For me, it's common sense voting. On town meeting floor, there is no Republican, Democrat. There's what's best for the town, what's best for the community, what's fiscally strong, what's fiscally smart, what impacts are going to help our town grow into a positive way. Now, some people may have differences of opinions on what that direction looks like, but people listen and people vote, and we've always seemed to vote the right way to move our town forward. So I go into town meeting floor with no agenda, other than making sure that whatever we're doing is for the best of our community, listening to people who are sponsoring the articles, listening to Finance Committee's thoughts on it, and making sure that whatever we're doing is for the best. And I think when you go in with that focus, whether you're a member of town meeting or you're a selectman or you're any other position that sits at that meeting, I think as long as you go into it with a clear mind and open to hearing everyone's opinions, I think we're going to continue to have great success in town. So
I think if you think about town meeting, I mean, no greater change than Donna Nero on the pot referendum. Here was a woman who just absolutely passionate about her views against it. And at the last minute, she got up and advocated for allowing the
medical
testing.
Yeah, medical.
The testing
And
as
the
well as the growing. and
as well as
cultivating.
the cultivation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was amazed. I just sat there and looked at the person next to me and said, that's a Milfordian.
Right.
That's somebody who's realized for the better outcome of the community, her personal views she set aside.
Correct.
You know, it's kind of hard to eat a poop sandwich, you know, right in the middle of town meeting, but boy, did she ever.
Well, I think
And-
she was gracious about it and
Yeah.
showed her position, and she said, hey, I may be passionate about this piece of it, but this is important for our community as a whole. So
And as it turns out, the piece she was most passionate about didn't come anyway, because nobody voted for the dispense. Well, not nobody, but not enough people wanted a pot store in Milford.
Yeah, I think there were some unintended consequences to the first article that was voted at town meeting, and I agree with Josh and you that I think Donna saw that that wasn't the intent of the article, and she had a willingness to come back and make it right. So, you know, you have to applaud someone, as you said, for having the willingness to do that rather than just shrug their shoulders. Because that would have been really a significant detrimental effect to those two businesses who had invested millions.
We would have chased them out of Milford.
And they had invested millions of dollars in the facilities where they're presently located. So I think the willingness to come back and take a look and you know, tweak, make some corrections of those unintended consequences made all the sense in the world.
Yeah, especially when you got somebody like Chris Haudela at Proverde. I mean, I'm in the scientific side of this state, and the man has stood up and hurt his business to maintain his integrity. Because, you know, we know that the limit for pesticides in pot is 0.
Right.
So there are other testing houses who say that here are the 9 pesticides we're going to test for. Well, wait a minute. If I'm using a pesticide, I'll choose number 10. I know you're not testing for it. And here's a guy who's saying, no, I developed an LC mass spec method that does all 50. So I know he's told people, don't bring me your stuff if you're cheating, because I will find you. I will find what you're using.
yes, standards.
How do you chase a man with that integrity?
Right.
You know, who been at Waters, he's been in the Milford business community for so long. So, you know, I'm always more and more proud. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes you got to chuckle. You know, when we spend half an hour debating rogue roosters buying marijuana on Main Street, giving out the avian flu, I mean, you got to chuckle sometimes. But overall,
How many chickens can you have?
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Chicken debate.
Josh,
Yes.
as a selectman, how would you deal with the Milford business community?
Well, with open arms. I obviously want to work very closely with the business community to ensure that we're doing everything we can to listen to their concerns and address any concerns that they may have to support growth and expansion, prosperity, community involvement. What I'd really like to see is economic development focused on a little bit more. I feel like when you look at some of the towns that we've started to study through downtown revitalization, such as Hudson and Marlborough and Franklin, they have a dedicated economic development committee out there ensuring that A, they're listening to the current businesses, attracting new businesses, courting other businesses, and finding out what we can do to attract them to Milford and to be part of our town and part of our community. So I would like to continue doing great things with the business community, but again, expansion and growth to see who else we can bring in and who else we can have as part of this community so that they're involved and giving back, and as well as employing people and creating job opportunities. Those are the types of businesses we want to see come in. We just need, I think, greater focus on that.
Tom?
I think Josh touched on each of the points. I think that, we have to have an economic development plan so that we know where we're going. I mean, there has to be a roadmap. And I'm not saying you don't go out there and try to entice people to, open businesses here. Now, absolutely, we should. We should encourage people. I think all too often, and I'm not saying the town government should enforce regulations and rules and bylaws when I make this comment. I think all too often we get to know and don't work with people. How do they get to yes? So someone that wants to come and open a business here, I think in many cases they don't know all of the things they have to accomplish and where to go and get those things done so that they do it right. So something as simple as having, that pamphlet, that brochure that shows you if you're going to open a restaurant, here are all of the permits you'll need, and here's the department you go to seek them, and here are the inspections that have to take place. I think all too often there's a sense of frustration on the part of people that want to come into the community and open a business. The recent town meeting, the special town meeting, the whole discussion around liquor licenses. I don't think you can encourage a restaurant to come here to Milford without already knowing whether or not you're going to be able to obtain a liquor license. There aren't many restaurants that are going to open without a liquor license.
Are there many restaurants that can survive without one?
I don't believe so, but I've never I've never managed a restaurant of that size or magnitude that we see some of the businesses that we do have in this community. But I think laying out for people, this is how you get to yes. Because any of us that are in that business of enforcement, we already know how to get to know. I mean, here are the facts, here's the law or the rules, and we're there.
Tom, I guess you get the next one. A few years ago, we had the opportunity to increase two taxes. One was hotels, one was restaurants. Milford decided to increase the hotel tax,
Right.
not the restaurant tax. Your feelings?
I agreed with it then, I agree with it now. Most of the taxes that we're going to see in the hotels are people that are either coming here for business, so they're traveling for business, or they're going from place A to place B, and this is kind of a pit stop. Every once in a while, I'll have relatives that'll come into town and they stay at the hotel. But so the impact even on local residents, it's de minimis. As far as the restaurants, when you look at Milford, many of the restaurants, and I mean a good majority of them, are chain restaurants. They're actually, local people who opened a business. I think that we already have the dual tax rate, so they're paying that. To add this on, and it is an added burden for them as far as keeping track of things and the rest. I think that the town meeting made the right decision. And I think the Board of Selectmen made the right decision in not bringing it to town meeting.
Josh?
I feel the same. You know, we have a large transient population who come into town for business quite often, and whether it's any of the hotels you can name, I feel like that is less of a burden on our community and our taxpayers if the hotel tax was put in place. So I agree with it as well. And the same thing for the restaurant tax. I think many of our restaurants are small businesses and mom and pops and independents. And so to ensure that we weren't putting any additional burden on those businesses that are allowing us to go out and have our lunches and our dinners and support the community and sponsor a baseball team and do all those things is very important. And so I think it was certainly the right decision that was made across the board.
I just looked at it very simple. If you're going to increase taxes, better to increase it on other people than us.
Right.
Because every time I travel, I see, you know, state tax, dog tax, cat tax. You know, I think in New York City it was 28% or some ridiculous amount above the hotel room.
Right.
Why? Because when they vote that, you're voting it on people who can't vote against you.
Correct.
Whereas the restaurant tax, I mean, like you say, maybe you have some family come in once a year.
Right.
But I don't know of many of us who rent a lot of hotel rooms in Milford, right?
Well, certainly not in town, right? Yeah,
Right.
we're usually going somewhere else to rent a hotel room.
But, you know, you turn around and say the restaurant. Wait a minute, now you're taxing me.
Right.
Because I'm one of the people, like you mentioned, that likes to support the local restaurants.
And I don't want to pay that tax at Oliva's or Jean's.
Right.
And that's the bottom line.
It just seemed like, okay, if every time I travel I have to pay tax out there,
So do they. Yeah,
they can pay tax when they come here.
absolutely.
You know, and it's amazing when you think about, what are we approaching, $1 million worth of hotel tax a year? You remember when the Sheraton first came in, they couldn't make it as a hotel because they couldn't stay full? Now we have 7 hotels. That's a wonderful thing for our economy.
Yeah,
Milford.
certainly.
Emotional, let's see, Rudy, you get this one.
Josh.
No, that's Josh.
Too many Leoshas.
This better not be a sewer commissioner question because he's
it's
not
a
here.
sewer commissioner. But be happy you didn't go for sewer, because I remember the first time he came on, they were going to send him down the manhole
Right
in the
down
sewer.
there, right down.
So you don't have to do that.
Thank goodness.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We look at immigration, and it becomes a very emotional issue in Milford. Your thoughts?
So this has always been an immigrant community. My great-grandfather came here direct from Ellis Island, had other family here. So actually both my great-grandparents. So my grandmothers on my father's side's parents and my grandfathers on my father's side's parents both came here directly. Lived next to each other. I told you the story. They grew up on Hollis Street, Hollis Court. Grandfather wasn't allowed to talk to my grandmother because he was a nice enough kid and he was going to embarrass the family. So on and so forth. They got married and here we all are. So for me, immigration is, this town being an immigrant community is something that it should always be and should always embrace. You can drive through many areas of town and see all different types of cultures and diversity and restaurants, and certainly I've tried all different cuisines over the last several years, and that's part of who we are, that's part of what this town is and what this community is. So for me, it's nothing that we should run from, we should embrace it, and it's something that I think is always going to be at the center and the core of our community. So it's certainly a hot button item nationally, and it's not something that I feel the Board of Selectmen is even dealing with. We're dealing with ensuring safety of our community, the safety of our taxpayers, but embracing whomever and whatever is coming to town and being open to that. So absolutely, for me, it's something we embrace.
Tom, views on immigration?
Well, first, as you know, we've discussed before, I mean, the issue of documented versus undocumented, or legal versus illegal, whichever term people want to use, that's a responsibility of the federal government. And the Supreme Court's been very clear on that.
You can't deport them to Rhode Island?
No. You can't deport them to Hopkinton. So, so the issue of immigration is one to be dealt with by the federal government. Issues, as Josh mentioned, if they are immigrants and they are involved in a homestead where things aren't compliant with health standards and safety standards, then it should be addressed. But that's regardless of whether you're an immigrant, not an immigrant. You know,
That's a health issue.
I mean, my grandparents came here from Ireland, so you know, I'm second generation in this country. And the bottom line comes down, you know, when I served in the police department, there were people that would, and I told you, Al, this story. I stood on Main Street with a gentleman who said to me, you know, you should stop that car. That guy, no way he has a license. And I asked him, well, how can you reach that conclusion? He said, just look at him. Well, that's stereotyping, number one. It's unconstitutional, number two. And, you know, when I took the position, I swore to uphold the Constitution, so I'm not going to violate it. You know, and I don't think you can just look at someone and say, okay, I know people in this community that came here through the process from Ecuador. They are American citizens. I know people that came here from Brazil. They're American citizens. I know people that came here, many people from Portugal. They're American citizens now. So I don't think you can just cherry pick like that. It's wrong. As I mentioned to you when we last met, if you go to certain areas of Dorchester or down to Barnstable, Hyannis on the Cape, and you want to look for illegal aliens, many of them look just like me because they came from Ireland on a work permit and didn't go back. So they're here illegally. Does that mean the police should be able to stop me? You know, this isn't, you know, they don't have the authority, you know, show me legitimacy as far as, you know, citizenship. That's wrong. It's not a responsibility for local police. As Josh mentioned, I mean, Milford has always been a home for people that have, you know, immigrated here. So, and I think that's probably one of the things that makes it such a vibrant community. As Josh mentioned, you name it, you know, and it's usually around food. So you go to different events. And you look at the different private organizations and clubs in this town, many of them are based in, you know, ethnicity, you know, where they came here. For instance, the Portuguese Club. You know, I've learned an awful lot about Portugal at the Portuguese Club. Just, you know, the ethnic dancing, music, etc. So I think it really is a positive fabric of this community.
Tom, you got the next one. Milford Pool, Fino Pool, whatever we call it. The pool down at Fino Field. We're coming to an inflection point where it seems like we're either going to invest a large amount of money or close it. Any thoughts?
I think we should invest the money. I think that Fino Pool, Fino Field, that whole area, if you wipe it out, you're wiping out a lot of the heart and soul of this community. People look to that particular area, particularly with young children, as an oasis. It's a place that they can go, they're safe, they can monitor their kids. I think it's a really, really, really sound asset of this community, and I think we should invest in it. As much as I think we should invest in, you know, taking a look at some more ball fields and other things, and, you know, I mean, from, you know, soccer to on, you know, beyond that. We had the chance to take over the Casey Pool, and the town didn't do it. And I think that says a lot about the Fino Pool, because that still was the magnet for the young kids in this community and their parents. So I'm in favor of it. I think that, you know, the Finance Committee, in working with Zach Taylor, have done some sound planning as far as the finances go. And I believe we'll be okay.
Josh, Tofino or not Tofino?
Again, I know this is very important to you. This was your first kiss, was at Fino Field. For me, I support the Fino Pool investment. As I said before, I was part of many of the years we had the Rotary Swim program and did the sign-ups there and had the kids and the families come down. So I've seen what good it has done and how it brings community together, that type of location, the historic piece of Fino Field and the many, many years of ball games that were played there. And for me, I want to see the pool invested in. I want to see that area invested in, but I mentioned last time, I want to see, hopefully that turf field that has been talked about is down there. I think that's the right spot for it. I think it can be lit up, it can operate many hours throughout the day, not affect as many residents as maybe the town park area or some other place in town. So for me, that is a good spot for that field because it can be utilized, great parking, out of the way. But it's a gem of Milford. That for many years, that is where you went and played several different types of sports. It's where Pop Warner practices. You go through the list. So for me, I'd love to see additional resources looked at and possibly spent there for Vadalato, for just the facade of it, parking. I know the lower bowls, the floodplain, so I know there's probably not much that can be done there, but for me that is a place where we have to be proud of and continue to make it look and feel great, even from the signage when you pull in. It's been a while since some of those things were
Well,
updated.
the good news is, for 6 years, we put aside $200,000. So FinCom has put a vote every year that we had a big surplus. Luckily, that's been every year. And we got $1.2 million sitting in reserve. Not the stabilization account, but in the, we call it short-term, long-term, in the other reserve fund. But there's 1.2 million there. So when the Parks Department decides where, when, how, we can go to town meeting and say, we'd like to turf a field. Here's the field we want to turf. And by the way, we have all the money already put aside, which will make it easier to get the votes.
Well, that's part of that, even Tom had mentioned, that's part of that long-term planning that the Finance Committee has always done well.
No, we try.
Looking at the future and ensuring that we're going to be ready for it when it comes.
I still get beat up when people say, why are you putting money away in the stabilization? There's a school coming. I said, you've been saying that for 10 years. Yes, and Woodland came and went. And I feel very proud that we built a $61 million school and we didn't use profanity. No 2.5 override,
Right.
no debt exclusion. So from that end, I feel very good. Let's see. Josh, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
Well, Al, I feel strongly that I am the right choice to help move Milford forward. I feel that I'm very invested in this town, both from a residential owner and a commercial owner standpoint. My business is here. We've proudly given back over $100,000 back into community organizations throughout my time of owning Leoch properties. My family is here. My parents are here. My grandparents and great-grandparents were settled here for many, many years. And so I feel like I am now in a good place in my life to be able to help lead Milford to that next step and lead them into the future. And hopefully my vision is in line with many other people, but I feel passionate about this town. I want to be able to have my children be as proud of this town as I am and live here for generations and have my family stay and be as proud as I've been. So for me, I'm just excited to have this opportunity. I feel strongly that my business acumen and my municipal acumen mix will be the right voice for the Board of Selectmen. And I feel that now's the time to move this town forward.
Tom, I'm from Milford. Why should I vote for you?
I believe that if you look at my record here in this community and serving the community, that it's one of accomplishment. It's one that shows my passion for this community, for the residents, the businesses. I believe that I have the skill set. I've managed municipal budgets for over 30 years. I've managed municipal employees for over 30 years. Been an attorney for 30 years. So I think that I have the background and the skill set to serve this community as a member of the Board of Selectmen and make a difference in people's lives that I hope that I did, during my tenure as police chief. I believe that I did. And I think people can expect the same if I serve on the board. They're going to see that same understanding, that same compassion, that same commitment, and someone that is still willing to listen to them and help them in any way that I can.
And as always, we started off by saying, I won't ask you to vote for either one of these people, but I'll beg you to vote. Whether you watch this show, all 6 of the loyal viewers, whether you go to the Senior Center, you go and listen to Kevin Rudden's show with the town crier, or even what I find really cool, go to the high school. as the candidates go up in front of the high school kids, our future, do something to get to know which one of these two people will best represent your feelings, your beliefs. But then also, when you see either one of them, don't be scared to say thank you. Thank you for stepping up and being one of the few who are willing to invest a lot of personal time and energy and get a lot of grief for doing what's right and making Milford better for our seniors who built this town, for our kids who will be our future, and we hope to keep them in our little center of the universe, and even for us who are enjoying the benefits of what people have done. So please, get out and vote. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless, and may tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you. And thank you, too.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home.